North Select Board meeting. If everyone wants to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we've just two announcements this evening. Matt Often and I will host an Ask Me Anything at the South Grafton Community House this Thursday, November 21st at 7 p.m. The Select Board's AMAs are an opportunity for residents to come out and ask a variety of questions and learn more about anything happening in town. The Metro West Building Officials is proud to sponsor a Thanksgiving dinner with live entertainment at the Grafton Senior Center on Thanksgiving Day, November 28th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This event is open to seniors from Grafton, Millbury, Northborough, Northbridge, Sutton, and Upton, age 60 and over. If you'd like to participate, volunteer, or attend, please contact Nancy Malone of the Council on Aging at 508-839-9242 or via email at malonen@grafton-ma.gov to reserve your seat. Those hosting the event are committed to ensuring everyone enjoys a special day, so if you require special accommodations, please let them know. Okay. That's my son in Hawaii. He doesn't understand the time zone problems. Just put it on here. So I can't expect him to know my entire schedule. Okay, so let's move on to, we have no public hearings. And so appointments, Select Board appointments, Council on Aging. Is Kate here or at home? Hi, Kate. Yeah, come on up, please, if you don't mind. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Well, I wrote like the big thing to write, so, hi, my name is Kate. Kate Unterreeser. I was born and raised in South Grafton. I'm a single mother of two amazing boys and presently working as a paraprofessional at the Millbury Street Elementary School. When I was a teenager, I worked at a local nursing home part-time. I enjoyed the position so much that when thinking about what I'd like to pursue as a profession, I had considered gerontology. Well, life got in the way. I got married and moved across the country. Unfortunately, the college that I had gone to, they didn't offer those courses, so I got a degree in elementary education. After 4 years of working with children, a dream job was offered to me at the same nursing home I worked at as a teenager. My husband at the time and I decided to move back to Grafton. For 7 years, I worked at Beaumont Nursing Home as a recreation assistant and absolutely loved it. I enjoy the day-to-day activities I'd help put together, but I also loved being an advocate for the residents as well. After 7 years, I had to make a difficult decision. My family, of course, took priority, and I stayed home to raise my children. Now that my children are older, I'm beginning to explore my interest, one being how I'd love to participate more in the town, and what better way than to give back to the older adults that have always meant so much to me.
Great, thanks so much, Kate.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the board for Kate?
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Just one. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Did you say you're currently a paraprofessional at Millbury Street?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with being able to make the Council on Aging meetings? Because I think they do meet during the day.
Oh, they do meet during the day?
Yeah.
I can see. That would be my only concern.
Okay.
I don't know about their schedule, so I can't comment on
just
that.
verifying.
Okay.
I think Andy is correct. I don't know exactly what time.
How often do they meet too? I guess I haven't looked.
I believe it's monthly.
Yeah, I think it's once a month, but at 1.
So I could make that work with work. Work with work, yeah.
Yeah,
Could probably zoom in,
Yeah, that too.
take a late lunch.
So
There
it
you
does
go.
look like they meet once a month. Last meeting was at 1
On what day of the week?
Thursdays.
Thursday.
Okay.
that could potentially work still?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect.
Craig, did you have something?
No, I was gonna
Sorry.
say that we can, make the appointment, and then if for some reason, the meeting schedule doesn't work for you, you can just, let us know about that.
Okay.
You can always make a change, but certainly, I think it'd be great for you to try it, and thanks for stepping forward, volunteering your time.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yep, Mr. Alamo?
I move the board vote to appoint Kate Unterreeser to the Council on Aging.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thanks so much, Kate. Thank you. You'll hear from the town clerk to do what you need to do to get, Okay, and moving on to the Cultural, Council. Is Mitchell here? Come on up, Mitchell. Hi. Welcome.
Hi. I'm afraid I'm going to be improvising because
That's
I wasn't
perfectly fine.
expecting
No
this.
worries.
But I was actually a member of the council about 20 years ago,
No, great.
back when the late Faye Morrison was running the council. And I know she had since passed, But what was one of my biggest contribution, because my background is music. I was a professor at Berklee College of Music for 26, 27 years. Not quite sure. I retired 2 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, but I've been a musician for 50 or 60 years since I was a child. So one of my contributions, well, what they had me do was when people were applying for music grants, it was natural for me to go through them and listen to them and, you know what I mean, and review them, because one of the things that I did over the years is I adjudicated at music festivals, actually at Berkeley and Central America, and of all ages. And now I have more time, to contribute to this kind of thing, since I did retire, but I haven't retired from music. Okay, I'm actually I play on a show for Grafton Cable about once a month. They do a show on a trio that I participate in, and so you could see it up on YouTube. Put my name in, and I guess that's about it. Like I said, I'm improvising here, so
Great. No worries.
that's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Mitchell.
Okay.
Any questions from the
Anyway,
board?
sir. Yeah, you have it. Yes, sir.
What instrument do you play?
I was going to ask the same.
Primarily, I'm a guitarist. Yeah, but I can. I also play bass. I use piano like a tool. I was an ear training professor.
Do you give lessons?
No more. My teaching days are over.
Off the table.
Off the table.
Okay.
People come up to me on jobs and ask me
Yeah.
a lot, and I say I would rather help you and tell you something for free than to meet you on a regular basis at this point. That's off the table.
No worries.
Who's your favorite guitarist? Just kidding.
Oh, Jim Hall, Tal Farlow. I got so many. I love all the great jazz guitarists from the 1950s and 60s. Wes Montgomery, those people.
You'd be talking for hours and hours with my father-in-law. He loves all that.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, all right.
Any
But
other
anyway, I'm in a situation now where my daughter we moved out here about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, when my wife became pregnant with my daughter. Now my daughter's in her third year of college. So we're, classic empty nesters, and I would have time to contribute to this kind of thing now, more time.
Great. Any other questions?
Any
or
other questions?
comments from the board? No. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Alamo?
I move the board vote to appoint Mitchell Seidman to the Culture Council.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Okay.
opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. Welcome. Look forward to your contributions. Moving along to the Facilities Assessment Committee, Nicholas Wilson. Here on Zoom.
We do not have him on Zoom.
Okay. And he did submit a write-up. He went to BBT, among a couple of other things, right? He's available evenings and weekends. maintains a biological lab in Roslyn, Connecticut, graduated from BVT in 2010, a wide variety of experience in multiple facilities and equipment management. And there is an opening still on that committee,
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Motion to appoint Nicholas Wilson to the Facilities Assessment Committee.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Craig and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And the ambulance committee, that's to appoint the chief to the openings left by the former chief. I assume he's not coming in for any of this.
No, I didn't even tell him he's gonna be on this, so.
Do we want to let him know?
No,
He knows.
he's aware. But no, I,
But you make the motion.
yes,
Okay.
That's right.
at that time Mark put you on a committee.
All right. I'll make a motion.
Okay, great.
All right, I move the board vote to appoint Chief Neil Minardi to the ambulance committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then moving on to the town administrator appointments, we have 2.
Yep, those are both Chief Minardi again. So Grafton has what's called the Keeper of the Lockup, and as well as a Traffic Safety Committee. Both of those are my appointments, and I appointed Neil Minardi. So I'm just looking for the board to affirm that.
Okay.
Just one question. Just Chief Crapo didn't want to like stay on traffic safety or?
He couldn't have given us his resignation letter faster.
Jeez.
It was something that you said about
I
that
see
corner.
him in the hardest way. Yeah.
You were too hard on
He
him.
resigned from that before being actual chief.
Yeah. He was like, "I'm gonna give my notice and I'll stay here."
Sprinting out the door. He'll be back.
All right, Mr. Alamo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Chief Neil Minardi as the keeper of the lockup.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Alamo.
I also move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Chief Neil Minardi to the Traffic Safety Committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving along to new business. This was on our agenda last week, and we just carried it over, waiting some documents. And I'm not sure if there's anyone that came in tonight for this from Broken Creek or the Wesson property. Nope, still.
Probably not.
Oh, maybe this gentleman.
Do we have everything now?
We do.
Yeah.
We received the tip certification, I think, today.
Okay, so just confirming no one's out there from Broken Creek.
Yes, no, I'm here.
Oh.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, this is John Scaff from Broken Creek.
Okay. And so what's, just real quick, a little bit about the event. I don't think that there was much on the write-up that came in to us.
No, I think it's the alpaca farm. They're having a like a event with local shops or local vendors coming in, and we'd like to be there and offer some of our wine.
Okay. My question on this is, it's like a private property, right? Or is it also a business that's,
No, it is a private property, I
Okay.
think.
okay. Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, barring none, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the board vote to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Scaff Vineyard and Winery, also doing business as Broken Creek Vineyard on Saturday, November 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So moving along to our discussion on 1727. We do have some guests online, and maybe what we can do after I kind of kick this off is have everyone just introduce themselves that are here for this particular topic who are on via Zoom. So basically just kind of circling back to requests to have the entities that are involved specifically John Grant, GSX LLC, and the builder to come in and just, address the board and any questions that are outstanding. This board, is, obviously you guys went through a lot with the planning and permitting process, but given that you went through that, you did see how much public input there was. And so there continues, at least for me, to be, public input or questions related to all this. So I think just trying to, look at this. I appreciate the documents that came in today. Hopefully the board was able to review some of those, the addendum or the amendment to the our packet. And so, yeah, maybe we can just start with you guys just introducing yourselves.
Let me start. I'm John Grant. I'm the president of GSX. As you know, back in 2021, in January, we submitted a package and were approved for won the competition or the RFP submission, and were awarded the project to build the project there at 27 Upton, or 17-27 Upton, as it later became known. We did bring the team with us tonight, and I thought I'd introduce them all. The builder is actually a partner in the project. He's actually my 50% builder, and that's Brendan Giblin. Brendan operates, well, Brendan, tell them about your company and who you are and what you do and where you're located.
Sure. Well, thank you. As John said, Brendan Giblin, I'm the president, owner of Brendan Properties, local real estate development firm, specializing in both residential and commercial. We've been located here in Southborough, Mass for 40 plus years. Excited, as John also mentioned, we are not only the general contractor for the project, but also a 50% partner with John in the development LLC.
One of the reasons we chose Brendan and his group was because we wanted to keep the project local as much as possible. And Brendan and his group were very excited about it, and we're pumped up about creating something of high quality for the town of Grafton, just like we were. So moving on from there, I'd like to introduce Steve Preller, who's the corporate counsel for GSX. Steve, say hello.
Steve, you're muted.
You have to unmute yourself, Steve. Attorneys unmute themselves. In any case, Steve prepared the part of the document that talks about the LLC, and it was involved in that from the beginning. We also have Kathleen O'Donnell, who's with us, who is part of the legal team from. And Kathleen, you're part of the.
I represent the trust.
Trust, right? Right.
I'm not part of, unfortunately, not part of your legal team. Trust legal team.
Yeah. And we also have Bill Pizzoni, who's our local counsel in Massachusetts. And Bill, you're there somewhere, right? I just saw him there a couple minutes ago. In any case, that's pretty much the people that got together to respond to your questions. I'm glad to have the opportunity to meet you all. It's been 4 years since the award of the contract, and it's been an interesting 4 years, obviously, with the pandemic and the rise in interest rates and the rise in the cost of construction and everything else that could possibly happen. But the good news is we have a project, and since you had a few questions, I thought maybe we'd start this off by answering those questions and going through the chronology of this project. And of course, when we get done, if you have questions or questions along the way, you can ask as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is maybe, John, if you wanted to start off, and again, knowing that we did get the information, I think everyone had a chance to review that. Am I correct? So just maybe just a gross summary, or adding anything that you think might be relevant or pertinent to us.
Or if you have any questions about any of it, when we started the project package that we got had a delineation of the wetlands and also had a level 1 environmental review. The delineation of the wetlands was done by a local company, and I think they had taken that information from prior wetland delineations years before that and had put that in the package. The level one environmental, I think as I showed in the package here, showed that there was lead and other contaminants in the soil. But unfortunately, since they didn't really drill well holes, they just took samples from a few places. They couldn't tell exactly where the contaminants were in the highest concentration, and they also couldn't tell if any of the contaminants were traveling in a direction. Of course, one of the concerns is always whether the contaminants are traveling, in a direction off-site or on-site. So we gave the proposal, and the proposal basically was a response that was a podium building, it was 4 stories high. There was commercial uses on the front of the building, and it was basically 133 apartment units with 198 parking spaces underneath it, and about 5,000 square feet of retail space, plus the leasing offices on the first floor. The project, basically was laid out in response to what we understood about the wetlands, the 25-foot wetlands buffer, and also the fact that wetlands can be mediated up to 5,000 square feet to regularize the perimeter of the building and the perimeter of the wetlands itself. The initial submission basically suggested that we target, actually it suggested there was a huge market. I guess there's a fairly big shortage of housing in Massachusetts, and so that they suggested the market was great. They also suggested that we should look at some seniors as well, because it seemed that nothing had been done for seniors in that area. We had just completed an assisted living and independent living in Hudson, which was filling up pretty quickly, and we thought that was a pretty good thought. So we moved forward with that investigation. We thought about the idea of putting a limited service restaurant in there, and a housekeeping area, and some medical uses. And basically, those uses would allow the residents upstairs, if they wanted to age in place, because you had food, you had cleaning, and you had medical personnel on site on a daily basis, which allowed them to have basically what you really get when you rent an independent living facility. So went forward from there, and we were trying to see if this could be what we call a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community, which means usually these are sort of mixed use of seniors and young people and things like that. But as time goes on, people tend to age in place, and they end up being pretty senior dominant. The building was 55 feet in height. It had 69,000 square feet of first floor area. That's about 1.5 acres. And it was a large square plan around a central elevated courtyard. So there wasn't very much land that was being used outside the building. All the land, all the outdoor space was internal in that courtyard. There was a pool in that courtyard as well. Once we were actually awarded the project and signed the purchase and sale agreement, we started a typical due diligence. Ty and Bond were our civil engineers, and of course they're the civil engineers that we used on 8 Pine Street. And as we moved forward, we retained them to go ahead and do a redelineation of the wetlands, because before we went before the Conservation Commission, we had to have some accurate outline of the wetlands. So they proceeded with that to do that assessment. We also started looking at the data that we had from the level 1 environmental. At that time, I think the city was proposing to do a second environmental, because when they found the levels of toxins in the ground, it was incumbent on them to report that to the state, and that reporting triggers a level 2 environmental. So we picked that ball up ourselves and decided to pay for the level 2 environmental so we could get the project moving forward. When our civils came back to us with, and by the way, I'm sorry, I missed Jeannie. Christie is with us tonight. She's our civil engineer, has been for the past. You there somewhere, Jean?
I am here. Hey, everyone.
Okay.
Hi.
So if you have any questions about the environmental, or if you have any questions about the wetlands delineation, you can ask Jean. Her firm did the work, and they did a great job. When she came back to us with the wetlands delineation, as it turned out, it was far worse than was in the original packet. The wetlands were actually condensed in the rear, and it's possible also that the wetlands expanded because there were phragmite around the perimeter of the site. And so the phragmite tend to grow over time. So as time goes on, those wetlands can sort of expand along with some of the plants and things like that. Anyway, in looking at that, we realized that that plan was not going to be workable because it wouldn't fit within the wetland setbacks. And beyond that, when we had some initial talks with the Conservation Commission, we found out that they were going to be very conservative. Typically, you can work with them to work with setbacks and especially the buffer areas and things like that. And I think I also mentioned that typically you have about 5,000 square feet that you can play with on the perimeter of the site so that you can actually smooth out some spots. Do you guys have the site plan for our first project there that you can put up on the screen? It's a colored site plan.
Yeah,
I gave it to Amber. Can you put that up a second so we can take a look at it?
Thanks, William.
Okay. So baseline, this is the plan. You can see it was pretty much out to the front street. The commercial was in front, and there was a driveway on the right-hand side to the rear, and that was all parking underneath a concrete deck. Right above that, on the second floor above the deck, was the first floor of residential units. So there wasn't really any outdoor green space on grade. The green space was actually up inside the courtyard on the second floor. And there's a unit count and a tabulation of space there on the right-hand side that you can use. Anyway, in looking at this thing, it appeared that it was unworkable from the standpoint of the wetlands, and then beyond that, the Conservation Commission's stance of being very conservative caused us to even have further condensation of the site because we couldn't create a smooth exterior envelope for the building, so we had to condense the building even more. And that led us to our first iteration, which is the next drawing. And that iteration, as you can see, we took all the parking and built a parking garage, a precast parking garage, and then we created an on-grade C-shaped building that integrated with that parking garage, had retail uses in the front, about 6,000 square feet, and then public space, and then had a large green courtyard in the middle. So we started to actually use the site area a little bit more. But as you can see, we pulled in everything quite a bit from the previous drawing, probably in some areas over 50 feet. And so we were ready to move forward with this project, and we finally got our environmental assessment in. Now, this the first project was January 15th, 2021. This project was penned in May of 2021, and the third project was actually penned in October of that same year. So the question is, how did we get from the project above to the project below? And you scroll back up to that project above. So when the environmental reports came back in, it was discovered that underneath the DPW's garage, there was a fairly large concentration of lead and other toxins. And that those levels were migrating over time to the south, which would be to the street, and to the west, which would be towards that house next door. We looked at that, and I guess the consensus was that there's two things about environmental waste: is that you can remediate it, which we had quite a bit of money in our budget to do to remediate the waste. However, the problem is that sometimes, even after you remediate it, some of those heavy leads come back up to the surface. And you really don't want to have a building over top of it, because if you have to go back in, especially if you find that some things are leaching into the wetlands, et cetera, you will have to tear the building down basically to get into the ground in order to do further remediation work. So the difference between this building and the next building is the fact that we took everything in the front and basically to the south and to the west and reduced it in scale. And so if you go to the next shot there, this is our first drawing. As you can see, that's November 2nd, 2021. And so our building essentially exists only on the north and on the east of the site to stay away from that concentration of hazardous waste, which is under it. So that basically was the evolution of the building. We started here. We continued to work with the Conservation Council, and actually there's another iteration of this building where the top leg, the north leg at the top, is cranked up a little bit at an angle north to make it fit within the boundaries of the wetlands as they exist on this drawing. You can see those wetland setbacks, and you can see what I'm talking about. If you look up towards the center of to the right center of the building, you'll see that line that comes in dramatically like a little knife edge there. The Conservation Commission would not let us fill that. So we had to essentially rearrange. The same thing with that bump in that's over there on the right-hand side on the elevation. So we had to basically rejigger the building so that it missed all those indentations, and that cost something in terms of not only the site area but also the allowable parking that resulted from this. And so as a result of this, we have two parking lots. We have a parking lot on the main site, and we have one over by the barn, which luckily we were able to create a path back to this building, sort of a shortcut, so that those parking spaces aren't that far away and that you don't really have to walk next to the street to get back to our building. So that's basically the story of how everything changed and was the same. It actually happened over a very short period of time. May was our second iteration, and actually October, this is November, but October was our third iteration. This is a 4-story building, as was iteration number 2, but the only amount of parking that we have covered here is that one stretch of parking on the right-hand side there, which we provided basically for people who were seniors who wanted to park inside the building so that they had access without having to walk over any icy streets or things like that. So that's pretty much the overview of the metamorphosis of the building. This is pretty typical for any architectural project, especially one, around wetlands, and with the second whammy of having environmental waste in concentrations that are higher than the allowable levels in the front yard. And so that is sort of the story. I was going to turn this over to Steve Preller now a second to talk to you about, I see there's an interest in GSX is evolution from GSX and GSX Solutions. And so, Steve, do you want to describe what that's all about?
Yes, thank you, John, and good evening to everybody. I've been the corporate counsel to GSX and to John Grant, probably going on, 20 years, John?
That's 24 years, actually, but it seems like yesterday.
Right. And over the course of that almost quarter decade, John, GSX, and his affiliated entities have had the pleasure of being involved in numerous multifamily, senior care facilities, and student housing development projects all over the country. So I'm here to talk about the structure of the deal. And the structure that we have used on this deal is virtually identical to the structure we've used on every other development deal that we've done, other than a few outliers which required special structure. So let me talk a bit first about the need for a project company. So an independent project company to take title to the project at closing on the development loan is something that's required on both the debt side of the financing as well as the equity side of the financing. So on the debt side of the financing, when you go out and get a development loan, the lenders always require single purpose entities to be formed and to hold title, because the lender has certain superior rights as long as it's a single purpose entity. The only business that entity does is to own the actual collateral that the bank has a lien or deed of trust on. From the equity side, that's dictated by the nature of how the equity comes in to finance these development projects. So GSX Ventures LLC is the entity that is used, which incurs the most financial risk in a deal. It goes out and finds sites. It identifies sites that have potential for development. It does due diligence in terms of whether or not that site meets certain criteria to get it under contract and to get land control. And then if we proceed to get land control, then GSX Ventures LLC gets land control of the project by entering into a purchase and sale agreement and putting up the deposit. And that is sort of the beginning and the end of the role of GSX Ventures to acquire that land control. Once the land control is established, that's where GSX Solutions LLC takes over. So GSX Solutions LLC is the entity that on all these development deals has a responsibility to put up GSX's equity contribution in the project. It has the responsibility to go out and get the project entitled, to get all land use approvals, and to get the project to the point where we can actually get a developer partner to come in and help take on some of that pre-development financial risk to get the deal to the point where you can close on a development loan and acquire permits. So that includes things on a pre-development budget that typically would include hiring an attorney, hiring civil engineers, getting the point of the project all the way through where permits can be pulled, which includes paying for the complete design and getting construction documents finalized. All of that on most deals involves millions of dollars. And in fact, in this deal, the pre-development budget, if I recall correctly, was a little over $2 million to get it to the point where we can close on a development loan. So that money has to come from somewhere, and that money is at substantial risk until we actually have permits in hand and have closed on a development loan. So in this particular deal, Brendan Properties is coming on board as our development partner, and we'll actually be doing the the construction component of this project. I believe earlier in this project, there were Beacon Properties was a potential earlier development partner. So we need to have a project company that once we get our partner on board, we form the project company. And then within that project company, we outline all of the various financial responsibilities, both of GSX and its development partners. So we have 1727 Upton Street LLC, which is the project company. So when we did this purchase agreement, I was involved in the negotiation of the purchase agreement. And just like all the purchase agreements that GSX Ventures entered into, we disclose up front that we need to have this project company. We have an assignment provision similar to what we have in this contract that we intend to have a project company. And we absolutely need the right to assign the contract to the project company. Why? Because in order to get it to closing, we need to do it. And at the time of closing, we usually have millions of dollars invested in pre-development expenses in the deal. So that's why it's in there. That's why the structure is what it is. It's customary and it's typical in every deal that we've done. And we were up front, we disclosed it, and I believe it's pretty clear in the purchase agreement.
All right. Thanks, Steve, for that. Finally, you asked if we would delineate or go over how we would proceed forward from now, which we have our approvals and we're moving forward to construction and financing. Brendan has been really leading that charge. And so I'm going to let him go through the development schedule that he produced for us. And so, Brendan, take it from there. And whoever's running the screen, if you can put that development schedule up there so we can go through that and talk about it intelligently.
Sure. At this time, we're kind of in the middle of that final stage pre-con development, buttoning up all remaining kind of permits, details, as John mentioned, also sourcing our debt and equity sources. So term sheet letters from interested lenders, analyzing what exactly that structure will look like. We're excited. We've got a great project, a great budget. Our plans were slightly more advanced through the permitting process, I think, because the process maybe took a little bit longer. So actually, as we completed that approval, we had nearly 100% complete construction docs, which has allowed us to move quickly. So at this time, we've been in front of the building commissioner, building inspector, done some page turns of the plans, started that kind of initial review, working on our MEPs, our all kind of the detailed drawings. We've got the building. This is kind of a draft schedule that will be, infilled with additional details and information. But essentially what this shows is about a 14-month build after roughly a 3-month pre-con process. So this has us completing the building somewhere probably second quarter of 2026. We feel very comfortable with the schedule being achievable. Would like to try and beat the schedule a little bit, but felt most appropriate to have something that reflects what we feel to be reality. Happy to discuss the schedule more, but also don't want to take more time than needed. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
And that pretty much covers the questions that you submitted. If you have any questions for us or about our qualifications or things that we've done in the past, GSX has been around since probably around 2007. Grant Architects has been around since 1988, which I hate to say because now you get some idea how the hell old I am. But we've been working through, and we have projects from Massachusetts to Texas and everywhere in between. We are really good at working with communities. I think if you ask if you go online and take a look at gsxventures.net, you can see some of the projects we've done across country, everything from research centers to medical office buildings to student housing. And we're doing a lot now with assisted and independent living facilities around the country as well. We've been doing assisted living since 1988, believe it or not. That was longer. I never thought I'd be in one someday, but I'm getting closer here. So that's about it. That's the entire thing in a nutshell. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer anything you have.
Great, thank you.
John, the only thing I'd add to that, unlike John, I am primarily a local developer. Emphasis in this Metro West area. I'm second generation. Company was renamed Brendan Properties roughly 48 years ago when I was born. So its inception predates the 48 years, but I think I mentioned my offices here in Southborough. One of my first actual projects that I developed after coming out of school was Robin Drive in Grafton. So fond memories.
Okay, great. I'll open it up to the board first. Any questions for anyone who is here, or just concerns in general?
I'll go.
Okay.
Yes.
Good, Craig.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody.
Evening.
Good evening. So thank you for explaining, going through the project and explaining the process that you went through since your submission of the RFP to the town. I want to talk about the RFP just for a second, and I understand the iterations that you went through to get to where you are with this plan. The spirit of the RFP that the town put out really spoke to mixed use, and I know your submission that was that got you the project awarded spoke about a mixed use component, and you spoke about that tonight, about having commercial on the first floor, commercial in the barn, the pole barn having either a beer garden or a farmer's market there, and then senior living as far as the residential component of the job. That has changed significantly since you were awarded the RFP, and you went through some of those changes. I guess my question is, I know you had to move the building around for the environmental piece, and I have one question on that, but why did we lose the senior component and take on 2 and 3 bedroom residential units? Why did we lose the commercial component? Why did we lose the real community use of that barn? Because those were I think really great characteristics and pieces of the RFP that you submitted to the town, and now we're at a very, very different place. And with
Well, let me take a stab at answering some of those. Okay, first of all, if you read the RFP, there were many things that it asked for, but they were all optional. We were the only person that submitted a submission to this RFP, and I think most of that was probably because we were in the middle of COVID. And the other thing was that the site was sort of a wild card with environmental and wetlands. So there weren't many people that wanted to bid on it. But let me talk about that. So as far as it goes, the real problem was the same thing that we talked about before. As the site shrank in size, we didn't have parking for commercial. And see, commercial uses take up more parking than residential. Basically, a commercial use will take up 6 parking spaces per 1,000. And if you do a restaurant, it usually takes up even more than that because you have to do a certain number of parking spaces per table, per seat per table. So basically what happened was, as the site shrank, in order to keep the amount of residential that we sort of promised, and that actually was the money and the motivating factor there. I mean, we only had 5,000 square feet of commercial in the first project. As far as it went, the barn, we talked about something in there, but as time went on, it turned out that the barn was actually not capable of being redeveloped as that type of thing without some extreme money because of fireproofing and all sorts of other things for a what you call it, for an assembly tenancy. So I guess what I'm going to say is really the RFP made everything optional, and our submission had the had the wetlands been where they were, and had we not found a bunch of lead underneath the ground, we might have been able to achieve. But like anything else in this world, when you do due diligence on a project, the further you drill down, the more limitations you find it has, and these limitations are what led to the final project that we have right now.
Yeah.
So to be candid with you, it'd be great if we had more space because we could have done more things. If you looked at the thing, we started out with a 200,000 square foot building. We're ending up with a 133,000 square foot building, probably 50% of what we wanted to build originally. And the basic reason for that was the amount of parking and wetlands and things like that we could get on that site. And some of that was the intractability of the Conservation Commission that really held our feet to the fire on almost everything and made it impossible for us to get more parking.
Right. Well, it's too bad that you didn't have more wiggle room with them, but it still doesn't answer my question. As you could have just reduced the amount of residential units if it was a parking issue, or there was some site constraints. You could have reduced the amount of units.
That was our decision to do from economic
I understand
points
that.
of view.
All right. So if I could just talk for a second, John.
I don't think basically it hurts the final project, because the people from our project are going to go downtown and shop and support the uses down there.
Yeah.
Or across the street.
I understand that, but it wasn't like the plan got tweaked a couple of times. There was a major scope change in the whole concept and the whole job, right? The whole project is changed significantly from the original RFP. So it's not like the environmental impact on the site tweaked it a little bit. There's been major changes to the job, and the project is going to be very different in a lot of ways. And that was never brought to this board to be discussed.
I think if I may, the changes were fairly well discussed, and the plans were well reviewed. And at the time of the first amendment to the purchase and sale agreement, it actually references this plan due to all those various changes that John had kind of discussed, the evolution of the plan through that due diligence period. So there were some changes that were then memorialized in that amended agreement.
Okay, so because I wasn't here, but my understanding is that since the P&S has been signed and these different iterations have been done, that GSX has not come back and explained to the board, who owns the property, we're the property owners as currently, about the change in the scope of the job. Is that a fair statement?
That's not accurate either. I met with Evan a number of times to review our plans.
But your agreement is not with Evan. Your agreement is with this board, not with Evan.
No, but John, if I can answer this, Craig, have you seen a copy of the First Amendment to the purchase and sale that was signed by your board?
Yes, I have it here.
Yeah.
Okay, that references the project that we're discussing tonight. References the number of units, the mix. It is based on that plan that was delivered on whichever date it was that John mentioned.
I don't think that's part of the amendment.
Okay, so hang on. So just to clarify, I mean, I have the amendment, and I was here when we voted on that. And there's nothing in the document that I have here with the changes, and certainly when I was here in real time.
I'm not sure it spells out the changes, but it references that plan. I think it specifies 122 units. It references, the Housing Authority grant and or as a representation of all that. And that is kind of considered the new start in time, in my opinion.
Okay. So I'll just let Craig go ahead and finish.
Yeah. So, all right. So like I said, I wasn't here, but my understanding is that these changes have taken place, the scope of the job has changed, and John or his team, nobody came to let this board know that basically what the board voted on in acceptance of the RFP was gonna be a very different project. And I'll just stop there. That's my understanding.
Okay, that agreement, I think, was signed in January. I don't happen to have it in front of me. By that board referencing this project, though. So I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if
Well,
we're
the new
articulating
drawings,
that right.
the new plans were in effect as of October, like 21st, 2021.
And this
And-
agreement was signed, I
and-
think, in January or February of 22.
So the first amendment was signed April 11th of 2023.
So if I might, just kind of to keep us moving forward, I have the timeline and I have the amendment. I was here and we signed the amendment, and but anyways, I'll just kind of let Craig go forward if there's anything. Obviously, there's been big changes, and
Yeah.
we've spoken to that a little bit, but
Right.
Yep.
So I guess to end that, just my feeling is that the project's very different. The demand on town services is going to be very different, and what could have been, I think, an economic impact to the town. We're looking for commercial development town. We need business growth. We don't have a lot of opportunities for that, and we had one here which we've lost. So to me, it's a hardship on the town in that regard. I'm interested in the mitigation. You said that contamination is moving. I think you said, John, it's moving in a southeasterly fashion, and you were concerned with that movement.
Well, here's the scoop on that. We're going to remediate the entire thing. Okay, so there won't be any movement or anything, but the issue really becomes one of what might be down there below what we have. It's heavy metals and it rises to the surface later on because we have monitoring wells we're going to leave in place for
Okay,
about
that was my
5
next
years.
question. If you have monitoring wells, or
Yeah.
you do,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah,
So is it through those monitoring wells that you see the movement? Because I don't know how long those wells have been in place, but you must have done enough testing to see that plume or whatever it is of material moving in a certain direction.
I think what John had mentioned earlier was the concern of that movement. So far, the monitoring wells are not showing vast migration, but there's always a concern with that, which is why the wells stay in, and then part of your environmental plan with the state is the required monitoring and reporting of where those levels are. Once you get enough data sampled, then ultimately the goal is to be able to close that out. But with any sort of environmental contamination, there's a bit of a contingent liability. We do feel with tie and bond and our plan with the state that we've got a great plan to address it. So since it was an initial concern, now it's a calculated risk.
Why did the senior living component go away?
It didn't really go away. In fact, we had a meeting with with your board actually when we were being approved for the project, and we made that change there from a senior project to a NORC, to a naturally occurring retirement community. The reason we did that was twofold. One was that the market seemed to suggest that there was a fairly large demand for both products, and that we were we're going to provide both products, so the city didn't just have a seniors project, but had a project for young policemen. And about that time, we were also thinking about affordable housing too. We had 10% affordable from the beginning of this project, and those people who are going to benefit from that affordable housing, and which is now upgraded to 25%, are teachers and firemen and policemen.
Yeah.
Mostly. So, I mean, if you're looking at benefits from the project and additional benefits to the project, you're going to have 37 units set aside for people who are service providers in your neighborhood. They're local.
Yeah. Great.
Which is a big thing, probably better than a grocery store.
Two more questions.
And also, other than the services that go along with the assisted living, this housing is pretty conducive for an aging demographic as well.
Yeah.
It's an elevated building, and it has a bunch of amenity spaces, including a fitness center and a club room I don't know if you've reviewed the plans, but it's a pretty wonderful project.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of community spaces, and there's outdoor spaces in the back. Trying to fit this thing on that site was an interesting and very challenging project, and we did it. And I think that's a big thing.
What are you expecting the rents to be for the affordable units and for the conventional units? What are you targeting for a monthly rent?
That's a bit of a moving target. We work with kind of a third-party management company that sets those. Ultimately, what they do is a market study for similar products in and around that area. So we may go from Worcester to Boylston to, some of the Northborough sites. Rents, typically market rents are somewhere in and around that $3, just under, 3 being maybe a high water mark. So we're told. They haven't been set yet. The affordable rates are set by the state at 80%.
Okay.
Yeah, they're targeted, I guess, for people making $85,000 or less a year.
For the affordable?
Yeah.
Yeah, the affordables are going to be state regulated.
So a 600 square foot apartment, which is pretty small, could be 1,800 potentially at the high end.
Well, that would be market rate, and then for the affordable, it'd probably be about $1,200 a month.
Give or take, depending on where the market actually sets itself.
Okay. And the last question I had is do you have financing in place to get the project going yet? Or have you got that far?
We are working on the financing right now. I've got a number of term sheets with interested lenders. As far as the equity portion, we're comfortable with the equity. That, like John mentioned, that's kind of where we come in. So part of our next kind of pre-con is putting all those different pieces in place and making our final selections. The intent for this building is a long-term hold for our, the development group. It's not looking to build and stabilize. So just looking for, an equity source that aligns with that.
And Brendan, maybe you should talk about some of the other projects you're doing in the area right now, apartment projects like this.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a number of different projects from Attleboro to Norfolk to Hopkinton. We also do a fair amount of for sale residential housing, 55 plus development. So we've been fairly active in the market, kind of throughout our professional development.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board?
I'm curious about something.
Yep, Mr.
Madam
Alamo.
Chair. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great insights, great information. I appreciate you taking the time, especially in the evening. A question is probably something that other people are wondering. The naturally occurring retirement community. It's not assisted living. It's not senior living. How would you describe that to people? Would that be 55 and older? Would that just be it accommodates people that are a little bit older and looking? It's pre-retirement. How would you describe that, John or team?
Well, let me describe it. So I've been in assisted living since 1988, and originally in 1988, that was like a hotel room with somebody to feed you, etc. And then as time has gone on, it's become more and more like a nursing home. So right now, as far as the market for senior people go, there are 55-year-olds are pretty much driving their cars and active and don't need anything. All right. The first time we see people that need interventions are people who have chronic problems, like heart attacks or, diabetes or things like that. And those people can pretty much live in an independent apartment as long as there's an elevator there with home health care. Okay. In fact, the whole new thing now in senior living is independent living, which is typically a place where they get basically 2 meals a day, and they get someone in to clean their apartment once a week. This project could easily be a place where someone could tie into a home health care, have someone come and clean their apartment, and then Uber Eat bring in food for around the community or go out. Now, people with independent living typically still have their cars, and they're still typically actually the independent living part is people who are just lonely. They lose their spouses, they're living by themselves, and they actually need a lot of community interaction. So the idea of having kids and people of different age groups together is actually pretty beneficial to people who are older. As long as the kids don't get in their hair, So that's pretty much what the Nork idea is. And if you go to any of the retirement conferences now, you'll see that that's sort of the third finger. I mean, you've got 55 and better, you've got independent living, you've got assisted living, and then you've got memory care and nursing. And so, but people are healthier and people are tending to live longer lives. And so the biggest issue, probably one of the biggest issues we have in this country really is loneliness, and people wanting to be in and among other people who are active. Does that
So John,
answer your question?
John, and just maybe to add to that, not to be misleading, this particular building is a market rate. So the way that it's designed is to be attractive to all different age groups. Yeah, being the fact that it's an elevator building, what we've seen in similar type projects are there are a lot of buyers that move out of their primary residence, the kids move off, they kind of simplify their life and maybe downsize into a project like this with a little less maintenance. But it is attractive for, ultimately for all ages and built to not be restrictive.
So it could be a Nork, or could be marketed towards a community of people that are interested in something like that, but it's not specifically for that.
It's not specifically, and it's not restricted to that, but I think it's attractive for that.
You've also got a fair amount of covered parking and the elevators, and I guess beyond that, the community rooms and the fitness areas and things like that are things that keep people moving. And there's a lot of space for people to interact with other people. There's outdoor spaces as well, barbecue grills, and there's I think there's a fire pit outside too, isn't there,
Yes.
Brendan? Yeah.
Yes.
So Brendan, you're not specifically marketing it towards an older community. It's just, it could support an older community.
It's really multi-generational. So, it's not restricted by nature or by permit, but we do feel there's going to be a big, there will be a heavy interest with mature couples, whether they're empty nesters, a lot of, I guess the thesis is a lot of people have a lot of built up equity in their homes. They sell their homes when they get to that retirement age and are now gearing towards simplifying. But that's not to say that that's going to be the entire tenant mix, but the units are accessible. They've got, large hallways, they've got the elevators. So therefore it is attractive to all different ages. I would imagine that we'll see a good mix of young professionals with that senior demographic.
Probably.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else on the board? Any questions, concerns?
Madam Chair?
Sure.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming in. I think the presentation that you guys gave around the history of the project was really detailed, and I'm glad to have gotten the story, the narrative on how the changes happened. What I heard is that you guys had quite a few external factors that you were not aware of and couldn't have been aware of, that you responded to along the way. I view this project as a much better project than what was originally proposed. For a few reasons, but what I see is the first revision that you did, you tried to keep commercial, and in fact you increased the amount of commercial space by 1,000 feet, I believe. But then, due to the parking and the environmental concern, I really appreciate the fact that you're not plopping the building on top of what might need to be dug up and remediated in the future. So I think that's a really responsible way to sort of deal with that. Unfortunately, that did leave out the commercial option. I do remember a specific conversation at one point about the fact that the development had changed from 55 plus or senior to no restrictions on it, basically. And I don't know whether that was with the Housing Trust or the Select Board, but I do remember specifically that conversation, that that age restriction had changed. So I just want to, to the best of my ability with my recollection, add, that I feel like we have had opportunities all along the way to understand the changes that have been made in the project. And I think, from my standpoint, you guys have been above board in coming to the town, coming to the development team, coming to Evan, to the Affordable Housing Trust. I think this is the 7th meeting that I've been in now, including a couple of meetings with town council to talk about all the detail on this project. And I know more about development now than I ever cared to know about development. So I want to thank everybody involved, all of the council, for the town, for GSX, for the trust. There was a lot of work that went into putting all of this information out to help people feel comfortable with how this evolved, with you guys as a partner to the town and to the Affordable Housing Trust. And I hope people will watch tonight and watch your presentation and read through all the materials in the packet and see exactly where we are today with this and feel comfortable with you guys with this project. I see a project that has 20 additional affordable units with some funding from the Affordable Housing Trust. Those will be the first affordable units that the Housing Trust will have produced, and I think that's a huge benefit to the town. I like that those units are available to anybody who qualifies and that they're not age restricted. You mentioned the firefighters and the teachers and the guys who plow the streets and all that kind of stuff. Those are families that are in desperate need of housing, and so I think that's a benefit to the town, actually. And actually with the reduction of the commercial, one of the things that I heard in the planning board meetings over and over again is traffic. And in addition to using additional parking space, commercial activity also generates a lot more vehicle traffic. So what I see is fewer units, a much smaller footprint on the actual property. It's been 4 stories in every iteration that you guys had. So basically the look and feel of it. I really appreciate the work that you guys did at the planning board to change all of the design features to complement what was in the area. I know you guys added a lot of brick and you took some design cues from the area, and I think you did a really good job with that. So I just wanted to, thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate the information that you gave us tonight. It was really helpful for me. I look forward to you guys breaking ground on this. I really do, and I can't wait to see people moving in to these apartments. So, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Andy?
I'm gonna echo what Matt said. I've enjoyed each iteration of the project more. I think the final result that we have here is just going to be a really nice piece. Thank you all for coming in tonight. This is obviously not a cheap meeting for everybody involved. If we're getting down to, I think the main topic of discussion is the loss of that commercial retail space. And as Mr. Grant touched on, I think it's important to remind people that It wasn't mandated. It was an optional thing. It was, they were all, GSX was also the sole respondent. We had run an RFP previously that received no respondents, before modifying it to what we currently have today. Realistically, we're talking about 2 to 3 storefronts here that we've lost. And I think we have at least that many existing established storefronts around town that are currently unused, as well as parcels that could be developed for similar commercial use. So for me, while it's unfortunate, because I do think it could have been a really nice aspect and you know, help bolster the center of our town more, you know, it doesn't torpedo the deal for me. We just had our tax classification hearing, and as we learned, aside from restaurants, the town doesn't see any additional tax revenue from our businesses. It's the same as what the residential base is. So the benefit to the town comes when that property is upgraded. As this is a brand new building, any future upgrades are going to be a long way down the road. So adding retail to this parcel doesn't make it any more or less valuable from a taxation standpoint to the town. So losing the retail aspect really has no fiscal detriment to the town here. And even if, you know, we were to add a few businesses there, while great, that level of commercial growth doesn't make a dent in Grafton's overall budget that the residents are going to feel. So, you know, we're not exactly in a like an availability crisis for areas for small business, but we are in one for housing. So I consider this to be an important project, and just appreciate the work that, you know, GSX has done, and again, throwing it back to our Grafton's Conservation and Grafton's Planning Department and both those agents. You know, from our side, I think it is good that they held your feet to the fire on some of those things. You know, it's conservation and upholding our proper conservation laws are something that we hear a lot of concerns around. So while I appreciate that it was a pain point for you guys, I think we all landed in a much better place than when we started. So thank you.
Anything else from the board? Okay, I will just, for me, thank you for coming in. And just so you all know, I was here when we voted on this project, or on the amendment, I should say, in 2023. And there wasn't, you know, a presentation like this. I didn't hear numbers. I didn't go back and listen to the, you know, to the tape. But my recollection was, you know, since I've been on the board, the last, whatever, 2.5 years, I haven't met anyone from this teams other than going to the planning board and whatnot. So I think that this was important because this board answers to everyone, you know, not from a permitting point of view. We're not the Affordable Housing Trust. We're not conservation, right? We're kind of overseeing all of it. And with this being land that we currently own, you know, I have people that reach out to me on this because of that reason, right? It's just kind of a different scenario than perhaps certainly what I've been involved in on this board. So I think that I appreciate this evening finally getting, you know, answers to some of these questions, seeing your iterations. I hadn't seen those before. I hadn't, you know, you mentioned that you talked about Newark with us, and that wasn't with this board as far as I know, unless I wasn't here when that happened. So for me, this is information that now is available to folks that even if they were involved through the planning process, this specific info wasn't available then. And some of the questions that you were asked during the planning process kind of pertain to this. I also appreciate that the Maryland LLC now seems to be in good standing. And so my two questions, one relates to, so going forward, so the 1727 LLC, that was the entity that produced the document for planning, correct? Or that's where that came from. So going forward, things will be all that 1727 or whatever it's called, LLC?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's
Yep.
Brendan and GSX.
I understand.
So Brendan
Okay.
Holmes and GSX.
And that's currently in good standing in Massachusetts, or it's, you know, the information's available out there?
Yes.
And as of what was that, April or something of this year where you guys created that?
It was April. That sounds about right,
Okay.
Steve, right?
Yeah, that's consistent with my recollection. I don't have the specific date in front of me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. So I think that, again, you can understand how, again, I'm on select board and looking at all these different entities. People are in the community looking at all these different names. So I do appreciate that now it's spelled out a little bit in terms of how they all intertwine.
Together.
And it will certainly be much cleaner if it's just one LLC going forward, and that we're able to look that up, and secretary here in Massachusetts. And then my other question related to the barn. So the final disposition of the barn is that I understand the Mass Historical, kind of got involved, and you aren't going to be tearing that down, which is great. But again, through the end of the planning process, it wasn't clear to me. I know you mentioned storage. I just wanted to hear just a little bit, and maybe you don't have. I understand you might not have it all, tied up in a bow right now, but what that might look like when all is said and done.
We don't have the plan, yeah, we, at this stage, do not have the plans 100% done, but
I
the
understand.
plan is to rehabilitate the barn, so it really resembles how it appears now, just a little bit neater and cleaner. We're working to program the inside for some sort of storage use, and we're, I'd say, probably midway through that process. We hope to have those plans done to see exactly what that means. But minimal improvements to the building, mainly cosmetic, and to be used as a storage space.
Primarily for the residents or some sort of paid storage? Do you have any idea what that might look like?
No, we think that it'll be, a big draw for the residents, almost like an amenity space for bikes or other downsized type products that somebody has, but we have not made that exclusive to the residents at this stage.
Okay, thank you for that. And then actually I did have one other question. So it relates to the signal outside of the fire station. Can you just remind me where you all landed on that? Was like a 50% that you were gonna?
It was yeah, I'm sorry. I think Jean may have left. She'd probably be most familiar. It was some sort of a pro
there
rata
she is.
split on that. Oh, Jean, there's
Yes.
Jean.
Yes, I was hiding because I was in my car earlier, but now changed over to my computer so I can show my face now. So what we ended up with was the fair share contribution. So that took kind of the value of what a signal or improvements may cost in terms of there's a couple different things. There was the fire department had looked at a signal or had requested some emergency signal. There was the rapid rectangular flashing beacon at the crosswalk in front of Cumberland Farms. And those were the two things that we're looking in the road safety audit. And that, those three items that, were potential mitigation practices could not be funded by the project based on our fair share contribution. So what we are proposing is, I don't have the number in front of me, of course, a portion of that based on what the increase in traffic is to the community.
Okay, just for me.
If you need more, I can pull it up, but.
No, it's okay. I know that's
Okay.
pretty much what you said at the planning board meeting, so I just wasn't sure if there was anything more in terms of that, specifically the one outside the fire station. Because I think that's going to be, your driveway, I think, comes right straight to them, right?
Correct.
Okay. Anything from, if it's okay with you, if anything from the public here right now, if we can kind of keep it relatively short. And, yep, come on up. And just not reiterate anything, obviously, that we've already gone through.
Hello, Bob Carroll, 72 East Street. Madam Chair, just a couple questions, kind of dovetailing on the LLC. So you had asked about, the future and the past. Maybe we could understand GSX Solutions and how that fits in, because the documentation filed with the town in the format of a W-9 indicates GSX Solutions is a sole proprietorship or individual. And I'm kind of curious, how GSX Solutions is going to get funding or any lenders where it's a sole proprietorship.
Okay, so I'm not, this is Steve Preller. I'm not looking at the document that you're looking at, but GSX Solutions LLC is a Maryland limited liability company, which now is qualified to do business in Massachusetts. you asked about the financing. The financing is not going to be made to GSX Solutions. The financing is going to be made to the project company, which is 1727 Upton Street LLC. That is the entity that's going to take title to the real estate of which will serve as collateral to the lender. So GSX Solutions LLC, the Maryland company, has been in existence for over a decade and actually is the member in 1727 Upton Street LLC that's going to provide its share of the capital and has been and will continue to be responsible for getting the entitlements to the project and continuing to move forward as a development partner on this deal.
So, Madam Chair, what is the W-9 filed on behalf of GSX Solutions where the box checked off is a sole proprietorship? The town has that document. It's a tax document from the IRS.
Yeah. And that was used, if you can just, so this is in some of the verbiage they sent to us was GSX Solutions. You want to jump in?
Probably didn't see this.
Yep, Kathleen, sorry.
Probably didn't see this.
So it's Kathleen O'Donnell as counsel for the Affordable Housing Trust. And that W-9 is filed because the Affordable Housing Trust is paying its grant money to GSX Solutions. As the council has explained and as Mr. Grant explained, in the layers of GSX, that GSX Solutions is the pre-development participant in the project. And once the property is sold or acquired by the new LLC, GSX will not be the person that we would be paying. We would be paying the new owners if there's anything left on that grant agreement. But they are the pre-development, and the idea of the grant agreement with the trust is that we are funding their pre-development expenses to a share. We pay a portion of those. So the environmental site assessments, tie and bonds work, the plans, all that sort of thing has been partially funded with money from the Affordable Housing Trust paid to GSX.
Yeah, that was going to be the other point, right? Where I know Grafton and the AHT is funding a lot of this development work, right, from the AHT, not going out and not the developer funding this work, right?
No, the developer is funding the work. We are paying a contribution towards that.
Okay. And then the last point, I guess, would be the planning board meetings that I was attending, and especially the last couple, this was marketed as the Griffin, right? And it was marketed as luxury, and all the common spaces, the accoutrements were, pretty much luxury and not anywhere near, 55 plus, right? In terms of the property type.
It's
still.
If you go to my project in Hudson and walk through it, it's luxury assisted independent living. So, I mean, the difference is zero pretty much between that and what we're building. Not that it means anything, because this is a market rate project.
Right.
Yeah, we're not committing to it being an active adult, but we think that it's a draw for an active adult type
Person,
tenant.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank
yeah, thanks, Bob. And just to note that the board received, an update to our packet this evening, just a couple of hours before our meeting. So people here and the public wouldn't have seen what you sent to us, outlining all of this, just FYI. So appreciate the questions. Okay, anyone else? And again, just yep. Go ahead, Greg.
Oh yeah. Just while Kathleen's on the call, because I haven't been able to make any Affordable Housing Trust meetings, there was a clause I thought when I read that document, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kathleen, that said disbursement of money from the trust. My understanding was supposed to happen after they were in receive of the special permit from the planning board.
No, actually, we sort of are funding the the pre-development costs, which include things that happen before you can get the special permit. So most of the times when we do these grant agreements for the other affordable housing trusts that I work with, is we really are trying to cover those extraordinary expenses that any developer has to incur trying just to get the permits. No, that this was sort of, as I said, designed to sort of help them get across the bar to get actual permits and to actually build something. So
we give them money to develop the site without a permit and without ownership of the property. So if either one of those things fell through, what happens to all of that money that we've given to the developer? I'm not picking on John. It could be anybody. I'm just asking it's because from a business perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I look at John, he's a smart business guy. He has not bought the property yet because he didn't have a permit to build anything on it. So why would he buy the property first without having a permit, not knowing if he could build anything on it? So I use the same philosophy. Why would we give affordable housing or town money to an entity that doesn't have a permit or own the property?
Well, they have a purchase and sale agreement, and so we didn't give them any money until they had that.
And if I can just interject, sorry, again, I don't want to. This isn't a discussion about the deal with the Affordable Housing Trust and the grant agreement. Some of us may disagree or feel that we would never have made that deal, but this. No, or maybe we feel that it's a great deal. I don't mean to, go one way or the other, but my point is simply that I don't think that, debating the agreement is what it is.
I'm not debating it. I'm
Okay.
just asking
Yeah,
if
okay.
that's what it says, and I'm trying to understand the philosophy behind why we would do that. That's all. And if Kathleen was involved with this, she's the counsel for the Affordable Housing Trust, so I thought I would ask her that question.
There's a number of layers to that agreement, and I believe that if by any chance it was unsuccessful, there are certain clawbacks that are in there. I don't have it committed to memory, but it's not completely at risk. There's also a lot of due diligence done to make sure that, the project fit within the zoning, prior to. So it's not quite as maybe haphazard as you may think it appears. But there are certain clawbacks in there in the event that it was not successfully approved.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Craig, I can talk a little bit because we did have quite a bit of discussion at the Housing Trust, and there was a lot of concern about the amount of risk with using this approach. So your concern is definitely acknowledged. But in the end, we decided that, this was something that the town went to, put in special zoning for. We voted for at town meeting, went out to RFP. So, all the steps along the way had been done pretty formally. And in order to ensure that this was going to get built, to actually improve the success, chances of success for the project, we decided to take some risk for that. And unfortunately, with a lot of affordable housing, that pre-development cost is the hardest thing and the most risky thing to sort of fund. And it's really difficult to talk to the guy who's working on 25 Worcester with all of the crazy stuff he's trying to do to get the pre-development funding to just get it to the permitting stage. We did have a lot of discussions about that, and the decision was not taken lightly. And we did explore any option that we had to, take the title of the property if things went sideways, or anything that we could have done just with all of the different partners involved and the interest that everybody had. There just wasn't an opportunity to really do that. I hear what you're saying. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, open a wound. I was just with Kathleen here. I've never met her. I just thought I would ask the question. And I guess where I'm coming from is, I guess I've expressed my thoughts on the fact that the project has changed a lot, and I feel kind of bad about that because the town put out an RFP and the spirit of that RFP was a mixed use and that's gone. And I know projects cost a lot of money to get up and off the ground, and the financing and the all the environmental work you have to do and all the engineering and architectural, it's a lot of meetings and a lot of legal services, a lot of money. But I look at somebody like Soltier, who's another developer. He's done a lot of, nobody's funding him. He's built an affordable housing project behind, North Grafton. He built 39 units. Some of those are affordable. Actually, the whole project qualifies as affordable, but there's a percentage of affordable units. Somebody like that did not have he didn't bite the apple and submit an RFP submission, maybe because there was a commercial component to it. I know it wasn't required per the language, but that was the spirit of it, was in there, mixed use, a business component. He didn't bid on that, and you guys put that in your submission, and then it disappeared. So that's that, and I've said that many times. It disappeared from the project.
A project of evolution.
Right. No,
okay?
I'm just explaining. And I've said this many times, but I haven't talked to you folks about it. And that's been one of my concerns about the project. We're the landowners. We put out an RFP. We received something that I wasn't on the board, but they thought was a good concept, and I've read through it. It sounded great. Okay. And then here we are at a very different place. So. And that's been my concern, and I'll just say it to you folks who are on the call. That's why I've been hesitant, one of the reasons that I've been hesitant about this project. So, I've said my piece. Again, I thank you for coming in and giving your time tonight. It's always good to talk things through. And,
Kathleen, did you have your hand up, or did you?
Well, I just wanted to say that, when the RFP was issued, I don't think neither the town nor the respondent knew the accurate physical conditions of the site. And so one of the reasons why the affordable housing gets to be so hard to build, as has been pointed out by a member of the select board, and why affordable housing trusts are useful, is that we sort of provide the funding so that you can figure out what you can actually build on the site. And so I don't think anyone knew that there was the contamination on the site. And I don't think anyone, realized how difficult the wetlands would be to work with. So, you can sort of see, as Mr. Grant explained, and as we have understood, as we have funded the project, the reason why it has changed is because of the physical conditions of the site have been so different.
yeah, and I understand that, but he could have done 100 units instead of 122 and kept the commercial component. He didn't have to build 122. He could have built 100 and kept the commercial, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Let me explain one thing. The genius of what the Affordable Housing Trust did was they've created 37 affordable units for $48,000 a piece. Because that's the price. Their investment was $48,000. And they've created 37 units, which would have cost about $250,000 a piece. So it's a pretty good deal, actually, in the long run for the Affordable Housing Trust.
How are you getting to the
A little bit of
37?
risk, but a pretty good deal.
And as far, just to clarify too, as far as the risk goes, we have, well in excess of $1 million alongside through this pre-development expense of developer money as well. So it was a partnership that had a calculated risk with a benefit with the return.
I just have a question on that, John. So the original project at 10%, sorry, how did you get to the 37? So without the Affordable Housing Trust being involved, what would the affordable number have been?
It's 25% of 122.
It's 31 units.
I'm sorry, it's 31.
But without the Affordable Housing Trust,
my math is off, so it's about $50,000 a unit. It's still the bargain of the year.
But without the Affordable Housing Trust having been involved, what would have been the affordable unit number?
There would have been 12.
So actually the net gain is 19?
19.
So it's it is a different number, because I came up with close to $100,000 per unit when I was looking at it. When you look at the difference of what it would have been versus what it is, just clarifying. Colleen?
Colleen Roy, 53 Elmwood Street, and I just have 2 points. The spirit of the RFP keeps getting brought up. but the RFP only specifically calls out preferential treatment for affordable housing. And as you guys just covered, it went from 10 to 25%, which is basically the only thing the RFP really called out and asked for. And then the other thing on the agenda tonight was going to be talking about permit relief. Are you guys going to get to that?
Yep, we haven't got
Okay,
there yet.
great.
Thanks. Anyone else in the, hang on, I kind of had gone into public, but then I'll come back. Anyone else here? Anyone online?
No hands on Zoom.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Thank you. It's my understanding that the trust partnered with Kathleen in particular on this project because this is right in her wheelhouse. This is her area of expertise, and through my experience, she's been nothing but a trusted resource. I did just want to add, it has come up before. We've discussed affordable housing trusts more or less buying in to increase the affordable unit count. The trust agreement was for a 50-50 split of these soft costs with GSX up to $2 million. So, the trust would be on the hook for about $1 million to bring the affordable unit percentage up 15%, from 10% to 25%, so all the units count. Westboro just did this back in June with their Lyman Street development and paid $750,000 to bring that number up 5%. So again, I think the work that was done by the trust and our council on this was pretty top notch, and we are getting, the trust is getting a good return on investment here.
Okay, yeah, I was just clarifying because the numbers weren't what I knew they were meant to be. Okay, we all set? Okay, thank you everyone for coming in.
Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Anytime you want to see me, give me a call. Okay?
Appreciate it, John.
No problem. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
2 months ago, but that's okay. All right, so moving along, the other half of this, or part of this, was permit relief, and Matt, you asked.
Yeah, so part of the grant agreement, and Kathleen could probably speak to this a little bit better than I can, but stipulates that if the if the town can provide any permit relief, and I think we've got 3 opportunities to do that. We've got water, sewer, and the construction permits. That those costs can be essentially returned back to the trust, is how I understand it. So I believe we have had discussions with the sewer commissioners, and they're in agreement that they're okay with it. I think, Evan, you had a deal going with the water district. Ish.
We discussed it. I don't know, given the changes in the water district and their current situation, how amenable they'll be to reducing fees, that they could use the fee money to fix some of the issues they got going on.
Absolutely.
But I'm happy to have that conversation further with them.
Yeah, what I wanted to get out of tonight's conversation was to just confirm with the board that we're still happy granting permit relief as a way to refund some of the money to the housing trust to make these affordable units even more economical in terms of the costs. So we can provide construction permit relief, and there was a memo that was sent from the Affordable Housing Trust a year and a half ago, I think, which suggested a recommended amount to. It was essentially the same thing that we were going to do with 8 Pine. Yep, thank you. So we would cap the permitting costs, and so the difference between the sort of costs that would be based on the value of the development, the difference between that and what we had capped it at, that value would be able to be returned back to the trust to reimburse some of the money that it has spent on these units. So effectively making them more affordable in terms of development costs. So I just basically just wanted to bring that up. And yeah, have a discussion with the board, see what people thought about that, and see what information the board would like to, you know, if we're going to move forward with, you know, pursuing that. So yeah, that's what it was about, I guess.
I'm just gonna start this time, usually I wait, but, I would say resend that memo that was sent a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago from AHG.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, I know that I could benefit from seeing it again, and certainly Craig and perhaps Mark didn't see that at the get-go. And then additionally, what would that cap out at, like, what, 420? It's like 3,500 per unit or something?
It's 3,500 per unit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what, like 425-ish or something?
Yeah, it's
just
just
quickly in
I
my head.
think shy of 500,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Who's asking for this? Is this for affordable or?
So hang on a
Yeah,
second.
it's-
Just hang on.
No,
So Andy?
it's not John Grant. So
No.
what it is, sorry, I'm sorry. It's, Madam Chair. So it's the
Andy already asked.
Yeah, sorry. Andy, wait a minute.
Proceed.
No, so it's the delta between, so let's say the town, it was gonna be $1 million in building permit fees. The town caps it at $250,000. The delta between the two, that 750,000, goes to the trust. Right?
Yes.
Why?
I think it's.
Again, why?
The maximum they can.
Kathleen can.
Because it has to.
No,
be,
it's
because we just
30, it's
wanted to.
$3,500 per unit.
Yeah, so it's not 750, the max.
No, I was giving a random number because it's easier to start with $1 million than to do the almost 500 and the this and the that. So I was just making a mathematical adjustment.
I think, Matt, if I might, and sorry Kathleen, I'm jumping in ahead of you as well. I think
No.
sending out the memo that
Yep.
originally came out, in addition to the Affordable Housing Trust, the grant agreement to the board for what
Sure,
it's worth.
everybody has that, but I'm happy
Yeah.
to provide it again.
Yeah.
So Matt,
Just
you're
so it's-
asking for it, or the
it's fresh.
Affordable Housing Trust is asking? I'm just confused why
So
you're
in
asking.
the Affordable Housing Trust agreement.
I'm the Affordable Housing Rep.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
The Affordable Housing Trust has a grant agreement with GSX. Right? So do you understand the grant agreement, how that works?
Yep, a little bit, not as much as you do.
So we're partnering with them. They're matching our funding.
And that's a requirement of the grant agreement, Kathleen?
Yes, it is. If they get any relief on their hookup fees and that sort of thing, or some sort of, reduction or some, payback of fees that they have to pay, that, in the end, we would get $3,500 per unit back to the trust. So if they get relief from the town on these hookup charges and all that sort of thing, that they get a credit of some sort, then they pay us back $3,500 per unit.
But we have to give them the relief.
So it's stated in the event that there is relief granted, then
Yeah.
X amount would go.
That's right.
So it's not a requirement. It's just in the event that the town agrees to
Right.
relief in some of these fees, up to $3,500 per unit would be reimbursed back to the trust.
Right.
We didn't say you had to do it.
Right. So that's why I think, again, having everyone just look at the agreement.
Sure.
might be
Yeah,
helpful,
absolutely.
but-
Yep. Happy
Okay.
to do that.
Anything else to Matt?
And any other questions? Yeah.
Mine's not for Matt, but
Okay. Or anyone.
Andy,
yeah.
go ahead.
thank you.
Oh, thanks, Al.
Crap.
You lost it.
It was Evan who
It
interrupted.
was right
me,
in
not
there.
me.
All that and you forgot it.
Yep.
It's okay. You can hold it. It'll come back to you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so anything else? No pressure, Andy.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
The permitting. Again, for me, it's definitely love to help refund some of that money and resupply the trust for future projects. I'm curious to see what the water district will come back with. I don't, for me, it's not a problem on the town side, but they are going to be incurring a lot of expenses soon. And it just, it feels like almost greater good, if, depending what that number is, if we can provide them with some financial relief, which then in turn provides the residents with some financial relief on their water bills. I think that would be my larger priority at this point. But again, pending what we see from them and what they agree to, we'll just have to wait. But I don't know. I guess I'm just
Things have
expressing that
changed
caution.
significantly for the water district. But I think we need to ask the question and see what they're comfortable with, and just have a discussion at the board as far as what we want to support. So we would look at sewer, water, and construction permits. So those would be the sort of three main things we would look at. So Emery, I'll get that memo put together,
Or just resend whatever was sent out there if you have it still in
I
there.
think we can do it from our office if that's
Okay.
easier.
yes, it is easier.
Okay.
And I guess just to, summation, I mean, bottom line is any relief that we give, either it comes from water, it's gonna be hardship from them. Maybe it's not a direct hardship if it's from building or DPW, but it does ultimately come out of all of our, kind of pockets in terms of it would be potential income that's coming into the town that we might.
Sure.
relieve.
Look,
Yeah.
the
Same.
idea of it is, the main thing that a trust needs to do its work is funding and land. Those are the two things that make projects possible, like what's happening on 25 Worcester and this grant agreement. So this is a way for the town to support affordable housing and the Affordable Housing Trust in its project pursuits.
Okay, and just lastly, two things. I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable asking questions, across the board, and that additionally, I think it was helpful to get this information. And my comment was, we could have had it a little bit earlier, but I think, having all of this finally, all packaged, at least for me and hopefully for some people, to your point, Craig, this is ultimately a project that's going to impact everyone in our town, and to just understand it more and to see the iterations, and to see what these entities was, so on and so forth. I think that at this point, at least we're there now. Okay, so moving along, right of first refusal on 7 Buttercup Lane. This came up last week. Board had some questions relative to, and I know Amber did a little research, but just to kind of confirm what this what this means, and even what it means almost in perpetuity, I think was some of the concern, right? Like not even if it just gets sold now to someone who's not eligible, but then in 20 years from now, what does that mean? Like if they
right.
sell.
Right,
They
so
just sell.
it just stays, you don't, if you don't exercise your right of first refusal, it just stays in the 40B lottery. And people that are eligible can apply, and if they are the ones that wind up getting the house, then that's how that works, just in perpetuity according to the email we have with CHAPA and the back and forth that was provided in the packet.
So if in 90 days from now, there's no eligible buyer.
Yep.
And so then an ineligible buyer buys it at that rate still, fair enough. And then in 10 years from now, that ineligible buyer resells, it's still in our,
Yep.
it's still the same. We don't lose because it was talked
Yeah.
about like.
Yeah, we don't-
Years ago, that if their 90 days expired, they could sell it for market rate, and it came out of our inventory.
Right.
Maybe they've changed the regulations or something, but
yeah.
we lost some years ago because of that, and
Yeah, in the back and forth with CHAPA, there's a demand, right? So it's highly unlikely that we would see that anytime soon. However, they do have an obligation to come back to the town before that sale of them, if it was going to change disposition in any way.
yeah, we just wouldn't want to lose the unit, but and
Right.
the big thing is probably people, if they're qualified. I
Right.
mean, obviously, the price is a good price, but they're gonna have to qualify
Right.
to be able to
Yeah.
be a legitimate buyer for it, right? So
Yeah, and the folks that I wasn't involved in it. I just read it today actually, but Amber did a great job reaching out to them, and they were very, very helpful. So that was great.
Good.
Because if you've ever tried to read, chapter 40B, it's not clear at all.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns on that? Okay, we just wanted to be sure we were voting now. So, okay, Mark?
So we don't want to purchase it.
Correct.
All right, so Madam Chair, I'd like to move the board vote to not purchase the home at 7 Buttercup Lane for the maximum resale price of $233,923.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Mark, I appreciate you clarifying that, by the way. I'm sorry I giggled. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving along, okay, consider updates to the Cable Oversight Committee charge. We have our charge back here. Kind of talked about this in the summer at some point, or maybe it was before that. And the committee has had a chance for, a number of months of meetings and whatnot. So I know, Mark, you wanted to maybe just open the discussion again?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. This is exhausting.
Tell me
It
about
really is.
I'm saying it's good morning. That's
So,
how tired I am.
good morning, everybody. Wait a second. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't need all the laughs, just the right laugh, Gloria. Appreciate it. No, so I just wanted to chat with the team here, this board, the select board, and sort of open up a dialogue and maybe explore this a little bit. And if we agree to do something, then we could do something and take next steps. And if we disagree, then we can't, then we just stop. But a few weeks ago, probably a little longer than that, the Cable Oversight Committee came in, gave us a presentation, talked about the charter, and since then, I personally have taken a little bit more of an active interest in it. And, in part, one of our goals will be to probably, I think, is to, if we can identify ways to improve efficiencies in some of these committees and these boards, we should probably do that. And so just looking at that and taking some time to go to a meeting and watch meetings and get into a little bit, maybe there's an opportunity to look at this committee and make it a little bit more current. And there's some good ideas out there, some opportunities for us to look at and maybe compare to what other towns in Massachusetts are doing. And one thought, based on some really good conversations, not conversations with everyone, but conversations with a handful of people, is to look at the Cable Oversight Committee and start thinking about transitioning it to or converting it to a Cable Advisory Committee. And the reason I say that is because there's some 350 towns-ish in Massachusetts, and 351. So 350-ish qualifies for 351, sir. Just pointed out. Thanks for correcting me in front of all my friends here. I was kidding. And maybe 340 some odd, maybe 346 towns have adopted the new model of. I was just trying to be funny with you, Evan. I'm sorry. That was
No, you'll pay for it later. It's fine.
Potentially adopted a new model of cable advisory, which kind of changes a little bit. And I think one of the reasons for that is GCTV reports to you already. And there is some financial oversight or some financial approving power that comes through you anyway. And it also rests in the finance department as well. And I guess some of what I've gleaned from this is the current form of the Cable Oversight Committee wants to have that authority and oversight, which, it seems like it made sense, or maybe it made sense at the time, but it's just changing now with cable subscriber rates dropping. I was just talking about this with somebody today. I mean, I dropped cable 2 years ago, and I was a huge cable guy, and I know I'm not alone, and that's just a complete change in the way people access information. I think we have a great information that is created, great content that's created, and I'd be interested in seeing if this team wants to discuss ways of sort of refreshing it, making it a little more current, and maybe making this committee, helping this committee with a new charter and drive, maybe just more efficiencies inside the committee. And also, this content needs to see more of the light of day, a little bit like the sign that you want on the street there, and give more information about what we're doing. I just am a big fan of what the team provides for us, and I just think there's better ways to share that information with potential viewers and potential new customers, if you will. So I just thought I'd open up the dialogue and do that in a collaborative and sort of like authentic and decent way, and not trying to start an argument or anything. Just trying to find ways to see if we can fix this a little bit. If we all think that needs fixing. Go ahead, Matt.
Madam Chair. Through you. Mark, thanks for bringing this up. Can you describe sort of the flavor of cable advisory versus what we have today? So you talked about, some of the budget stuff a little bit. But,
So,
how do the cable advisory committees work? What kinds of things do they focus on?
So towns do it differently, but there are a number of responsibilities that they offer that some of these committees do. It includes informing and educating public about cable service, access cable needs and community, and recommend policy changes. And there are a number of other things that they do. One thing would be, I mean, how much do they really have to do? An answer would be, how much do they really have to do? And then there's some big things like, negotiating, new agreements that come up every 3 or 4 years. And then beyond that, we can actually work on that together, because there's a lot of different things that they can do.
Sure.
I've got in my notes, I've written raise awareness and the content created by GCTV, develop new messaging with GCTV, and key messaging, again, contract negotiations. And then, and I don't know if this is probably a little bit more abstract, but how can you navigate a world now that's shrinking? I used to be in publishing. We used to promote and sell encyclopedias.
Yep.
That island got really small in 1995.
Absolutely.
So how can we help the Grafton television team and Evan and all of us, manage that content and manage that world better?
Makes sense. So, that's interesting. The contract renegotiation is an interesting one. I do expect that landscape, and we've been sort of talking about this for quite a long time, right? That as people drop cable and those access fees wane, what's that going to look like? So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think having a solid team in place to do that contract renegotiation is really important. I see that as one of the main things that it's going to require a group of people that are going to be connected with that industry and what's happening and sort of the contract trends that are happening in other towns and that sort of stuff. So I see that as a key function, and I know it has been a key function of cable oversight, to date. So that makes sense to me.
Do we currently have an opening on that committee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So it's, it's just as of late, it isn't full. So it'd be handy to get someone on there to fill that role. And then, I don't know, if maybe we should look at some other iterations that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark, I'd love to see a couple examples from
Yeah.
other
I
towns.
may have one here, but I can get more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then maybe, go ahead.
I have a whole bunch of them, so I can help facilitate that if you.
Even better.
And Mark, I agree with I think what I'm hearing is less day-to-day oversight and involvement and more strategic planning, educational, and that contract negotiation piece. So a little bit like higher level, like more 30,000 foot view sort of thing.
Right.
Than dealing with the day-to-day kind of boots on the ground
Advisory
activities. Yeah.
instead of oversight.
That makes sense to me, given the way that the department's evolved. It makes a ton of sense to me, actually. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Mark
Yeah.
and Evan
Now
will
we got some work to do. Great.
get together and
Nobody wants to say nay.
come up.
Bob
Anybody have any commentary?
Bob he must have colleagues in this industry all over the place that
Yeah.
I'm sure you could pull a few ideas from. Look, he's got his notebook and everything. He's ready to go.
They're punchy, Bob.
It's not. I'm tired. It's fair.
I produced a statement and everything, but you pretty much said it all. Don't get focused on where the money's going to come from or where it's going to go, because the simple, quick, and easy answer is if cable never existed and there was no money, in order to produce the programming that everybody sees, including this program, would come out of the town budget, and it would just be a smaller operation in a smaller space, and I'm confident that Bill and I could still produce what we produce. Cable, planning board, select board, all the committees that take place on Zoom. So don't focus on the dollars and cents. But the efficiency of making one entity go away and molding into something different is what you really have to concentrate on. And the cities and towns across the Commonwealth that have changed to become cable advisory committees do focus on negotiations with the cable providers. But they also do other things, as Mr. Alamo pointed out. Let's see if I can find some of those things. Yeah, there's currently only 5 towns that still have cable committees that are involved in management. All the others have converted over to advisory. So we're a bit behind the curve. But of the 5, we're the largest town. We have the largest population. All the other ones are fairly small. And some of them are in the western part of the state where cable is a tiny, tiny piece of their day-to-day operation. When I spoke to someone at the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications, they said that many municipalities have already converted over to advisory committees and have also asked them to form broadband committees. Again, with the concept that cable goes away and it's strictly all just internet.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot to discuss. And with the focus being through the town administrator and the financial director and then direct reporting to the select board, all of the management and all of the oversight is right there. It's built in, and everything else becomes redundant.
Andy?
Yeah, to Bob's point, when this came up in August, we did discuss this briefly, and yeah, I'm in favor of the change from oversight to advisory. Oversight was much more important when Charter was running our studios and all the equipment through them. You know, we needed a committee to oversee them as a third party. This has now been absorbed by the town and as a town department, so all that oversight is now built in with all our usual departmental budget reviews and whatnot, as we've discussed. So we made the physical transition years ago, and we just haven't updated the paperwork to keep up with that. Yeah, I'm in support of this.
Thanks, Bob. Sorry for your words. Okay, so I think that we have a plan.
Thanks,
and that Evan and anyone else have questions for Bob? Or, I'm sorry.
Come on. Oh, I'm not the chair. Sorry.
Okay, Colin.
Sorry. It's a natural instinct.
Yeah.
Colleen Roy, I'll keep it brief. As a member of the committee, I think it is a great idea, and it's time to look into this, and I think it'll be a positive thing. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Evan and
Yeah, I've already sent them
Mark
out
will-
to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
So I gave you 3 because they're all fairly similar, so it gives you 3. We can dig out more if we need to.
Okay.
As well as a link to the Cable Advisory Committee's area on mass.gov and the current charge that we have today.
Okay, but Mark, if you want to delve into that a little bit initially,
I will.
Give us,
Yep. And then, so
maybe we'll push. Go ahead, Mark.
how does that, what's the next step then, Evan? So I'll do some homework on this side. Maybe we can visit
Yeah.
once or twice.
Sure.
And then how does that work after that? Then we go back and say, we're making the change.
Well, I think
Or
again.
do we engage other members of the committee? Do we
Yeah.
just continue to scrutinize? How does that work?
If I may, Madam Chair, and Andy, I'm
Is
gonna
that okay,
go.
Mark? For you want to call it Evan?
No,
Madam
so
Chair,
I-
may I? Jeez, I'm so confused. I'm so tired.
I think it's
Done.
I think it's incumbent on the board to figure out what their process is going to look like.
Okay.
But I think it would be something along the lines of the board, kind of developing what its overarching goal is here and developing a charge that it finds to be, within the realm of consideration, and then opening it up to further conversation. Once the board is kind of boiled down, it's kind of key points that it's looking at.
Yeah, so give it, oh, go ahead, Mark.
I'll try, Madam Chair.
Oh.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, and actually, we all will, so we'll, I'll kind of review this, has been something that, you've been looking into a little bit more, so the rest of us can, look into it as well, and kind of,
we have him.
we'll,
Feel like you're saying that's
we'll
what we should.
have it on another agenda at some point, and then we'll kind of decide where we want to go from there.
Okay.
Sound good?
Tell him that.
Follow up.
That's what we have.
Yep, Bob.
I know I have a full-time job. That's
Yeah,
the other
this
thing,
is
yeah.
what he does.
We'll get there. We got this.
I'm sorry, off topic before I forget. Mitch, who was here earlier this evening, he's a member of a trio called The Conversation. They record all of their sessions in the studio.
Yeah.
Directed by Bill Robidoux, produced by Bill Robidoux. So those are constantly recorded from the studio. That besides him, besides that trio and the Massachusetts Police Institute, that's the most frequent and constant use of the studio on a sometimes weekly basis. And I didn't want to forget to invite everybody to the open house on Grafton Celebrates the Holidays. Come down and dance in front of the green screen. Don't touch anything.
Why is he pointing at me?
And story, just, Mark, you might want to consider, if you haven't already, meeting with Bob, and then maybe even, meeting with the chair of the committee, and just to get a sense from both of them.
Yep.
In terms of information or whatever. Okay, moving on, ready to move on to select board reports? Anyone?
I have one.
Okay, Craig?
Yeah, so we had an
Thanks, Bob.
EDC meeting, last night. Was it? No, what's today?
Tuesday.
Yeah, last night. Okay, this week's a blur already. And it was a really good meeting. Good ideas, good participation, and I think we're working towards kind of a strategic plan. In the current charge that we have, which was done in 22, I think, it talks about a report from that committee at the end of January. So we're going to shoot for that. We've just kind of reorganized, so we have no staff. We got to talk about that a little bit. So we're going to try and put together, 2-3 things that we want to work on, and it all relates back to the charge for 25 and maybe into 26. If we can get that to paper and get the commission to support it, then we'll come back here in February and present it. We are going to need a funding mechanism for this, and so it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. It would be nice to know if we do have some funds, because if we want to plan some business events like we had at the PO Pub, we want to do a couple of those, and then we were talking about maybe taking on the marketing responsibility for some of our commercial and properties, Discovery Drive stuff. Maybe we can take that on and focus on it and put out an RFP to interview firms to try to help us market and generate some tax base from that property. So those are just, and there's maybe one or two other things. So small scope, but focused on trying to do some work, and then outreach to businesses as well. I talked to them about our new pizza guy. So they didn't know about that, right? So I think, us having that information, so we can maybe go in there and say, we're on the EDC, this is who we are, this is what we do. We can be a resource for you or other businesses in town, related, to anything, any town business they may have to do. We want to be able to be somebody that they can pick up the phone and call. So that's kind of what we focused on, but it was good, and so we're going to meet monthly, I think, until at least we get a plan together and figure out what we're going to do from there. But it's a young committee, and we're just starting, but we moved the ball, I think, a lot last night.
Craig, do you have a sense of
Matt?
Madam Chair, I apologize.
We're letting that go. We gotta get better.
Create a memo about this?
I
it's fair.
apologize. Do you have a sense of, or I guess Evan, you might be able to answer the question too, just how many businesses we have opening on a monthly basis, new businesses?
No, but that's
part of the problem.
I want, I said last night, I says, nobody knows that we exist.
Right.
The commission. You know what I mean? The businesses, most of them don't, they don't get involved with town unless they live here. So they don't even know that we have an EDC. A lot of them. I could be wrong about that, but that's my perception. John, I think, was good about going around in talking to businesses and introducing themselves. But I think that's one of the things that we should do is you know, let businesses know that they do have a resource, and but in order to do that, we need to know that they're opening, to your point, and that,
Yeah.
you know, do we have a list of businesses? One thing that used to happen years and years ago, and we should take it up, I forgot to mention last night, is we used to do, I don't know if it was at the spring or fall meeting, but we used to do a business award, you know, and I thought about it a couple years ago, the Saddle Shed, they celebrated their 50th year anniversary, you know, that's hard to do, you know?
Absolutely.
And I know Colette Motors celebrated, I think, I don't know if it was 100 years or 75 years down in South Grafton. You know, I think there's a way to recognize them, a plaque at town meeting in the fall, maybe, you know, when the meeting isn't quite as full, recognize a business that's, you know, been successful or has an anniversary or whatever.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, we need to know what, you know, the businesses that are here when they were established.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's developing that relationship. It occurred to me that if we have a business every, other month or whatever that's opening up, we have our announcements. So we could announce their grand opening if they're having one, or just mention the fact that, a new pizza shop is opening up on Route 30 and,
Yeah. That's why it's good they come in, because we can give them a little bit of airtime, but if he didn't have to come in,
Right.
we probably wouldn't have known.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do we fix that?
Well, that was actually my question.
I'm sorry, madam.
Paper, yeah.
Speaking out of turn here.
I'm not doing it again.
How does the town, how are we finding, so the newest businesses, the trading card, or that shop, and then the Lego shop, so how does that information, how can that get to EDC? And then ultimately then what drove me crazy is the EDC website that has businesses that are not here anymore and certainly is never updated.
there's nothing on
But that's, something you guys can work on, but
Right.
I guess how would they getting the information to EDC on new businesses and even existing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to create on the staff side nope, that's not the word I want. Say repository, but that's not what I'm talking about. A way to track businesses. An index.
I think he would be awesome at that.
Yeah. Well, now he owns it. He said index, so now it's the World
Congratulations.
Business
Anything
Index.
you need.
Second.
So
Third Monday of every month.
yeah. So
Sure. Why not?
yeah. Oh, don't worry. Okay. So no, but we have information coming into this building, right?
Right.
From your DBAs to your building permits to your planning board to
Right.
all that stuff. All that stuff's coming through here, but it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Right. Nobody's talking to each other. So we just have to create a mechanism that. And part of it's probably a little bit of a culture change that's important to the board and it's important to get that out. But some of it is also, we just create a way to collect that so that EDC has a list. And I think it probably will wind up being a two-way street because as EDC is doing its work, it's going to learn when a business moves or goes out of business that we might not have any contact with them because when they move, they don't have to tell us anything. But that's a way, we can all work together to kind of reduce the ones that are no longer relevant that wind up on our website for 20 years because, no one's caught that. But I think part of it is getting us to recognize, or the organization to recognize, regardless of where they're touching the organization, that we need that information captured so that we can do a better job of welcoming folks and celebrating them and recognizing their achievements and all the things that go along with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point, that it is something that this board feels strongly about, and so maybe, working in collaboration that EDC is somehow finding out, like these two new businesses wouldn't have come before us, they're an established strip mall or over with, Ed, at P.O. Pub, so, just making sure that if maybe that's building department, right, that would have.
It could,
Yeah.
well, it's a lot, right? Cause you get some people that do DBA stuff and they've been there for a while or whatever. And then you've got, like the Saddle Shed hasn't probably interacted with a town department in quite a while.
Right.
So, cause there's no need for them to.
Right.
So I think there are ways, a lot of businesses touch different departments within the municipality. We're just not communicating them to each other in any way. I think we just got to fix, not even fix it, create that.
Yep. Great. Well, good, exciting. I didn't mean to interject so much, but I've been thinking about that, especially with
Yeah.
these two new guys. Okay, anyone else?
Madam
Any-
Chair?
Yep, Mr. Alamo?
Thank you. Mr. Dauphiné, did everybody go? Did the entire EDC attend?
No.
Going somewhere?
Who did attend?
You could look at the minutes or something afterwards.
All right, I just wanted to see, because
Oh.
didn't we added one or two new people to it?
Yes, yeah. Carl Moisen was there. Laura Didio, that last name, was there. Angela Achu was there. Sean McAvee was there. I was there. I think there was 5 last night.
Mhm.
Good, sounds like some new ideas and
Cool.
it's great, yeah, moving along.
Yeah.
Madam
The
Chair?
Select Board, report, sorry, Mr. Alamo? No. Okay.
Thanks.
No, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Chair. I have
You guys can try all you
I
want
have
to
a
butter me
report
up, it's
for
not
you.
gonna work.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, I went to the quarterly meeting of CMRPC. It was a really productive meeting. We did a workshop to provide some input for the state housing production plan. So the state, for the first time in like 40 years, something like that, is putting together a statewide housing production plan. All this, we broke out into different groups, little breakout groups, and we all kind of just had some questions to answer collectively, and all that feedback's going to go back to the state to help them produce that plan. So it was pretty interesting. There was lots of like evocative questions, and I love going to CMRPC because you get to appreciate the really unique challenges that, like, from a development and planning standpoint, that each community has. You know, you sort of think that all the towns in Central Mass are the same. They're really not. They each have weird little, like one guy brought up the triple deckers, and it was like a big issue in Worcester, the triple deckers, and it's not a thing for us. But, and you get to rural communities and they have water issues that other municipalities don't have, and things like that. So it's, so I really like those meetings. So anyways, it was productive, and I look forward to seeing that state housing plan when it comes out. And I'm not sure when that is actually.
Great. Andy, anything?
I do. Anne Marie and I were able to attend the Grafton Water District's commissioners meeting last week. Just top lining some of the stuff there. They voted to hold off on the 10% increase that was scheduled for this quarter, at least until Q1 of next year, at which point they'll decide if they want to push that out further. They've requested permission from DEP to reduce the chlorine levels at the Worcester Street well, although DEP sets that requirement, so there's doubt that it'll be granted, but they're trying nonetheless. Worcester outright declined our request for costs associated with hooking up to their water supply, and suggested we talk to Auburn. Auburn told us that they're waiting to sign up for Worcester as well, and couldn't be of any help. They should have the new website up soon, hopefully by the end of the year. They expect that'll greatly increase the amount of connection that they have with residents. They ask that you continue to keep reporting any issues that you have in your area. Assume they are unaware of them, and just report. Call, email, whatever's easier. There was also some additional discussion about the process for filing damage claims. They took some votes on the fine system and amounts for violating the non-essential water moratorium, as well as water theft. And we're in the fall now, so water usage is down, and that they're going to compile the information that they discussed on the fine system and the water non-essential watering moratorium in general, and push that out to residents before the spring. that's it for me.
Okay, moving on to the TA report.
Yeah, so it's fairly short. This evening, I was off last week, so I'm still trying to catch up.
Oh, you were gone?
I was.
I didn't know.
No, nobody noticed.
I did.
You'll notice last week's report was a bit more robust. Fine, you're still easing into things.
All right, anyways, let's keep going.
You are in trouble.
Gonna start reading your report. So, things continue to move along. We're still working on Millbury Street sidewalks. North Street is in pre-construction, and the Depot Street Bridge has had its initial walkthrough. But that's it on that so far. Fitzpatrick Road Bridge, we just finalized some of the procurement, and I signed off on an agreement.
It's fully out to bid as of today.
Right. So we're moving forward with that. Yes.
The Depot Street Bridge.
Did I say Depot Street?
Yeah. What are we doing to that bridge?
We're not doing anything. So it's the state and Sutton, but because it connects to Grafton, we're part of the process. We did a town meeting. We took some easements because they had
Is that Follette Street?
realign. No, it's down the end of Depot where it bangs over into Sutton.
Bangs over into
Right at the intersection.
Right. Yeah. There's. Right. Yeah. Sorry. Depot Street, Follette Street Bridge. Right.
Is it Depot Street in Sutton?
Yes.
Because Depot Street in Grafton is off.
Is
of
over there. Right.
122.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, no worries, because Depot Street in Grafton, we did that bridge not
Right.
too long ago, so
Right.
that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, sorry about that.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
flat.
that's what it is.
Okay,
Yeah. Follette on
Right,
our side,
sorry.
Depot on their side.
Yep.
Gotcha.
okay.
Finished the procurement on Fitzpatrick Road Bridge. George Hill, Fay Mountain Soap, Leland, we are right there on that bid process. We're trying to get all our ducks aligned so we can do that as an overwinter release and then hopefully get some good pricing on that. And I just want to mention that Fairview Cemetery, we are repaving some of the roadways in there. So if you're planning on making a visit, just be advised. I meant to take the cupola off there. That's done.
It's still done.
Still done. Although we are starting the interior work that resulted from that.
Yep, so that work actually started yesterday. The company was on site putting up the scaffolding. So they'll go up there, inspect it, make sure it's not going to be damaged any further, then replaster, repaint, and take everything down. It should take about 2 weeks.
Moving right along. RECC, we are meeting weekly at this point. Really making some progress. I'm going to try to bring to you on December 3rd some kind of the initial drawings that we have of the facility. We're still working on the layout. And the operations committee started reviewing technology last week. So that's pretty exciting, a little overwhelming. There's a lot of technology that goes into a center like this. So that's pretty exciting. And lastly, 95 North Street, I did a lot of work over the past couple weeks on the financing for that project. And I actually think that because of the DPW's contribution and some of the other things that we've done, we're going to be able to make that park work within the funding that we have.
Oh, great.
So it's been a ton of work.
It's a stretch.
Yeah, we're gonna be right there. So we've got some final numbers to crunch, and a lot of it, will hinge on us going back out to bid for the remaining work. But we're cautiously optimistic that we've been able to reconfigure that park without losing anything. So made some pretty good strides. About 100,000 of it credit to the Big E.
Yeah, that's what
Billy's Baked Potatoes. Billy's Baked Potatoes was right across from where Skip Sheds was, and that's where I saw the pergola, and I was like, "That's what we need. Why are we paying so much money?" So, yeah, it worked out well. And lastly, I wasn't obviously I wasn't here last week, but I did want to just say I was able to attend the Veterans Day celebration at South Grafton Community House, and the first one that I've attended here in Grafton, and I just think that everyone involved in that did such a wonderful job. I brought the girls down, and they it was great. They had a really nice short ceremony, and the girls were able to kind of take that in. They're only 8 and 10, and it was good. Chief Minardi did a great job. The veterans representatives did a great job, and it just was really moving and a great celebration. So, just wanted to say, thank you for having us, and it was a great job by everybody.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
There was some hullabaloo online about the Millbury Street paving in particular, the sidewalks there, and
the mailbox.
Mailbox placement.
I did clock that. I have not had a conversation with Paul yet, but I fully intend to. We'll be able to push some information out of that.
Because those don't stay there, right? Adjust that stuff.
Some of it's very specific, so I want to make sure I have that information before I give you an answer on that. I also haven't looked at it personally, but can go either way.
Okay.
It's looking good.
Yeah, we're getting there.
It's crazy how quick it goes once it goes. Okay, that's all, Evan?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. And correspondence, there was just one. Any comment on correspondence? And we have no resignations. Any public comments? I don't think there's a few people left on Zoom. Anyone with their hand up?
No hands on Zoom.
Okay. And meeting minutes from
Madam Chair?
2015, Mr. Alamo.
I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes for August 11th, August 20th, November 10, and 2015 is written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. My only comment would be that in those minutes, I don't know which ones, there was an invite for EDC to come up with a new business list.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get there 10 years, in 2025, we're gonna do it.
Wow.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries for all of those minutes, 5-0. And
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. We have two things to sign here.